IELTS Speaking Topics Part 3 Questions and Answers. These are IELTS Speaking Part 3 samples. Included are example speaking questions and answers. Understanding Part 3. In Part 3 of the speaking test you have a two-way discussion with the examiner, though you will still be expected to do most of the talking. This is the part where the examiner will really be able to test your ability. If you do very well on this part of the test and give thoughtful extended answers that are directly addressing the question, it will show that you have a high band level, though of course your grammar will need to be good too in order to do very well. These IELTS Speaking Part 3 samples are not here to be copied as you can't predict what questions you will get and the questions change regularly anyway, but they give you an idea of the sorts of questions you may get asked and how they could possibly be answered. There is no right or wrong opinion, of course. These are just IELTS speaking samples. You need to answer the question that is asked and don't go off topic, but the examiner is not grading based on whether they disagree or agree with what you say, so give your own opinion and don't worry about if the examiner has a different opinion to you. Questions and Answers Part 3. Good morning.
Good morning.
What kinds of possessions give status to people in your country?
That's a good question. Let me think. I'd say it depends on where you are and who you are with. If you are out in public, it's things like the car you are driving. If you have the latest Mercedes-Benz model, then in my country that is a sign of status, as many people can't even afford a car at all, whatever the make. Property, or the house you own, and the possessions you have in it are also a sign of status. If you have a nice house in a nice area, then this shows you have money and are someone important.
Has it always been the same or were different possessions thought of as valuable in the past?
I'm too young to remember exactly what it was like a long time ago, but yes, I think it was different. For example, nice cars have not always been available in my country. That kind of consumerism is a more recent thing, so this couldn't have been used as a representation of something valuable. I think it was things like gold and jewelry that were seen as valuable. Of course, these are still seen as valuable today, but previously it was these things over anything else, as a lot of the modern-day possessions were not available.
Why do you think people need to show their status in society?
I believe that this is because it's important in society to show you have money or are successful. It is nature, or the way we are brought up, that makes us feel like this, but also the pressure that society puts on everyone to be successful. And showing status is basically showing that you have money and you have success, So this is what people want to do. Going back to the example of the car. Driving around in a Mercedes is a very conspicuous show of status. It basically says to people, "Look, I am successful and I have money." Another reason is possibly for respect. In many cultures, if someone has high status, then they will be respected by others and they may receive preferential treatment.
Do you think advertising influences what people buy?
Yes, definitely. If there were no advertising and you went to a shop, then you would just buy what you wanted based on maybe what others have told you, what the product looks like, or, depending on the product, what it says on the label. Advertising builds up a brand and people then trust a certain thing because they have seen it on television or elsewhere. Also, there is so much advertising around it must influence us. You can't escape it as it is fed to us constantly in our daily lives, not only in magazines, radio, and television, but on billboards, on TVs installed on trains and platforms, even in schools and universities. So yes, advertising influences what we buy.
Do advertisements give correct information, or do they encourage people to buy things that they may not need?
I think some do and some don't, but it's difficult to know which are giving us the correct information. For example, the skin whitening products. I do not believe that these work, but we see them everywhere in Asian countries, and we are encouraged to buy them even though they are not actually necessary. The adverts, though, tell us they are necessary as they will improve our lives and we will become more accepted and successful. This, then, is an example of advertising encouraging people to buy something they do not need. I do think there are checks in most countries these days to make sure that adverts are giving the correct information and not lying to people, but I think it is still easy for advertisers to exaggerate or to do this without breaking the regulations.
Is advertising really necessary in modern society?
It could be seen to be necessary in terms of the fact that, as I mentioned before, there is so much choice that we need someone to guide us in what to buy or to give us some extra information about products. Without this, it would be difficult to know where to start. However, that said, I'm not sure that I would regard it as necessary as overall I think it may do more harm than good. As we just discussed, advertising encourages people to buy things they possibly do not need. We live in a consumer society and many people are in debt because we are encouraged to buy, and I'm sure advertising plays a major role in this. Without advertising, we could just do our own research and decide what we really need. So no, I would not say that advertising is necessary in modern society.
Do you think people take notice of advertisements on the internet?
Despite the fact that there are many adverts on the internet these days, I think actually many people tend to ignore them, or at least that is my experience. People usually go onto the internet to find something specific that they are looking for, which may be a product, or to read about something, so they will ignore what is not relevant to that. But of course there is no doubt that some people take notice of them. Advertising on the internet is a practice most companies partake in now, and they have to pay quite substantial sums to advertise on highly ranked sites. Of course they would not do this if it were not attracting customers for them.
Continue to next part.